If you take a good hard look at how most East African professional runners, especially distance runners from Ethiopia, if you look closely at how most of these runners run, especially their leg swing mechanics and activity, one of the mechanical highlights that certainly stands out the most is that most of these runners tend to run with a significantly higher back kick, where much of their leg swing activity really tends to occur behind the body and not so much in front of the body as we so often see in many heel strike runners. For a side note, many heel strike runners tend to swing their leg and foot way out in front of their body in a pendulum-like leg swing fashion, which may create a prolonged, destabilizing brake force or an abrupt stopping period that is strongly associated with damaging knee joint impact forces and may be one of the main underpinnings of runner's knee. Comparatively, again, if you look at many Ethiopian runners running in action, you will certainly notice that a greater proportion of their leg swing activity happens behind the body or close to or under or near the back of their hips. A really good example of this, I posted a link down below in the description box to a video I did showing the back kick of Ethiopian professional distance runner Kenenisa Bekele. He and many other East African runners have an incredibly high back kick. So check out that video to get a better impression as to what a higher back kick of the swing, leg, and foot looks like during running. Now, as I was saying, most Ethiopian runners tend to have a much higher back kick where their feet tends to fling up off the ground more rapidly and float up higher up near the butt, almost as if they're butt kicking when they run. Of course, at faster running speeds, your running leg swing back kick becomes higher, but still, if you closely look at most professional distance runners who come from predominantly shod populations, meaning that footwear is very customary and is viewed as an absolute must in order to protect the delicate feet from harm. If you look at the leg swing mechanics and the leg swing height in relation to how high the foot comes up under the hips or the butt, you will certainly notice that most of these professional distance runners from shod populations still have a much lower back kick height than many Ethiopian runners. It's very likely that the high back kick may help make Ethiopian runners be more mechanically efficient than many professional runners from shod populations. A higher back kick may very well be a winning factor for the reason that most East African runners consistently outperform many runners that come from habitually shod populations. Now, I know you can go down the list of the many reasons most East African runners outperform many of their Western and European competitors, but you can make the firm case that it could be that their high back kick may be one of the mechanical secret sauces that may certainly help propel their sustainable success as runners. For instance, what is so interesting is a higher back kick of the legs and foot during running may help bring great results from an injury and performance perspective, because running with a higher back kick may help scale back on the brake force during the touchdown phase of running, whereby a higher back kick may help shorten or reduce the brake force duration period, because if the feet spend most of the time swinging behind the body during running, the feet will have less time to swing out fully way in front of the body, to which running with a higher back kick, meaning the legs are swinging in motion more posterior to the torso or more behind or even underneath the torso and not so much in front of the torso, may be a leading foundation that may also help support forward momentum, because you will be potentially braking less if your back kick is higher when your feet are swinging more behind your body. This will certainly help inject more forward momentum to your stride because your feet won't be so much in the way. So what's the reasoning behind why most East African runners have a higher back kick as compared to runners who come from shod populations? Most of you won't be shocked to hear that many East African runners ran barefoot at an early age and continued to run barefoot up until adolescence, and many East African runners compete barefoot well into adulthood, whereby running barefoot seems to unlock a vital source of sensory input on the foot that may have a stimulative effect in causing the foot to rapidly spring up high off the ground, almost like a knee-jerk reaction. Evidently, there just happens to be some scientific evidence linking barefoot running to prompting a higher, more responsive back kick, suggesting that your back kick height during running may be in the hands of sensory input feeding in from the bottom of the bare foot, and it's through barefoot running that could be where the high back kick was formed in most East African distance runners. And by extension, because of their long history of running barefoot, most East African runners were able to retain a high back kick to some degree when they run in cushioned running shoes. So how does running barefoot plant the seed that fosters and perpetuates a high back kick of the leg and foot? The leading idea holds that the high back kick in barefoot running may be a defensive reflexive withdrawal mechanism, again, like a knee-jerk reaction, that helps keep the ground contact of the barefoot very, very minimal, ensuring the feet spend more time in the air than on the ground, generating a lighter, softer footstep in effort to naturally reduce impact production on the leg and foot. A higher back kick in barefoot running really seems to operate in response to the hypersensory stimulation surging through the bare foot, and is how running barefoot may help support a sustained high back kick, resulting in less brake force and a more seamless forward momentum flow. For instance, past research has demonstrated that running barefoot may certainly result in a more immediate withdrawal of the swing leg during barefoot running as compared to in shod running or running in running shoes, whereby it's the thick cushioning of most running shoes that the foot is less able to soak up much of the sensory input that is needed to trigger a more greater responsive reflexive removal of the foot or a higher back kick. In the absence of sensory input due to thick underfoot cushioning from a running shoe, the back kick height during running could be significantly lower and slower, and certainly we do see clear evidence of this in runners from shod populations where cushioned running shoes seem to silence sensory input at the feet, which may slow reflexive withdrawal reactions of the leg and foot during running, whereas the high back kick observed in most East African distance runners, to which East Africa is along the lines of being considered a barefoot population, their high back kick during running may be clear evidence of running barefoot because the sensory input obviously is more amplified when you run barefoot. In this case, we see the positive mechanical effects of barefoot running on display. Many East African runners are a striking example of how running barefoot may seed responsive and effective leg swing mechanics, which may play somewhat of a role in their major success as runners. This is why I strongly think that barefoot running should not be viewed as a threat that is damaging to the legs and feet, but as an asset that may certainly help strengthen your biomechanical efficiency via helping you generate a higher, springier back kick, which in turn may help channel more seamless forward momentum because it helps shave down the brake force period. A higher back kick is certainly a good mechanical habit that you may want to form and practice. It's worked well for most East African runners. What is more, researchers have also concluded that the snappy, rapid withdrawal reflex of the leg and feet gives a barefoot runner a more protective base that helps deter the foot from sustaining damage or chronic overloading during barefoot running. This line of evidence is in line with other research that has found that many barefoot runners tend to uphold a lighter foot strike via a higher back kick as compared with runners who run in thick cushioned running shoes. This is because a lighter foot strike that is registered in barefoot running works under the sensory input that streamlines through the bottom of the bare foot, and we have seen the progress that can be made when a lighter foot strike is carried out during running. A lighter foot strike during running may support repetitive and mechanical stress reduction, giving you a better chance to avoid potential injury during running. So in light of this, if you are looking for more opportunities to improve your overall biomechanical efficiency, of course, there are many paths to how to improve your running form, but it's a good idea to recognize and to pursue barefoot running training because of its uniqueness of how barefoot running may help you break the mold of running with a low back kick and a sluggish, inefficient leg swing or stride. Your back kick is more likely to be more responsive and higher, like Canonissa Bacheli, if sensory input is involved and not repressed, like it is so often in traditional running shoes. It's quite possible that repression of the foot's sensory system in cushioned, heeled traditional running shoes could be preventing many professional runners who grew up shod from potentially achieving similar performance outcomes or gains to that of East African distance runners. But then you can argue that professional distance runners from East Africa run in thick cushion running shoes, but again, also remember these runners have retained a high back kick, which was most likely hardwired at the highest level from having ran barefoot for so many years during very, very critical stages of development. It's this long practice of barefoot running and barefoot exposure during youth that could be the qualified roots for their high back kick retainment during shod running. So the take-home message from all of this is that when it comes to developing a high back kick for running efficiency, like what we see in most East African runners, do what they did and do some barefoot running, since a higher back kick seems to be more self-generated from the sensory energy at the barefoot, and doing so may really help to bring about a much improved back kick height that is essential to keeping knee crushing break forces very low. In my view, because of the enormity of the success of many East African runners, we have seen the progress that can be made because of running barefoot. Now, in contrast, when the sensory input that supports a high back kick and good running efficiency is silenced or reduced at the feet, it may do very little to ensure consistent performance advancements, and you may end up doing what doesn't work instead of doing what does work at the mechanical level. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you will also stay up to date on the latest research regarding the performance and health benefits of barefoot running, minimalist running, as well as forefoot running. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.